Welcome, welcome, welcome to everybody. I'm Dave Lowe. I'm the host here at GovBrief most of the time. I have the doctor, the colonel, also Colonel Dr. Rafael Marrero, the one, the only. They broke the mold, I can tell you that.
And they beat the heck out of the mold maker.
Yeah, they definitely they fired the molder, right?
That's right.
There you go. And Brian Hebel's going to join us, talking a little bit about what he's done, as well as Jesus Romero. Super great success stories. Both of these guys are great success stories. But let's get to know each other a little bit. Hang on a sec. I'm going to allow the transcription. But I'd like to know, let's get to know each other. All right. So do you work for the government? Or you're a former government, like Brian is a former government? Are you you're in industry, like a contractor or subcontractor? And what is your expertise? You can put a little bit in there for us. Let us know just a little bit. And what's your goal? Because somewhere along the line, you're going to turn into a retiree like Brian, because he's old.
That'd be true.
And then we can leverage what we have, right? That's what we do, right? We want to, they call it hanging out the shingle, right, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah, after 34 years in the government, I'm just interested in number three. I'm gonna guess what most of them are going to be.
All right.
From that standpoint.
All right.
But I'm
What's
really
your
curious
guess?
how many government people we have on Burst Industry. Yeah.
What's your guess for number three? What do you think is going to win?
The first one.
The first one? All right. I love it. All right. Well, we're going to get cooking. First of all, I want everybody to know the disclaimer. That way we can all participate. And we're going to learn a little bit more about disclaimers, the importance of that, so that's not affiliated or endorsed by any federal agency, and is provided to you, the audience, for informational purposes only. And it doesn't guarantee a contract, award, or compensation of any kind. What do you think of that, Brian?
I don't know. I like compensation personally.
I do like compensation too. It just doesn't guarantee you compensation. All right, it is being recorded, but data for AI collection is prohibited. We are real life people here. You hear me, Rafa?
Even if some of us are artificially intelligent people, right.
All right. So, and anybody from the government, it's voluntary for you to be here. An engagement by you is not an indication or endorsement to purchase from anybody else. So now you can actually participate. That's what GSA gave us. All right. Well, I'm going to give you a little overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to split this in a couple of different sections, but both of these weave together for you being a SME and building your SME brand. That means subject matter expert. In case you didn't know what SME was, we're going to make the definition for you. Not that anybody in the government has any acronyms, just saying.
No acronyms.
We'll talk about the power of becoming a speaker, the power of publishing what you have, and we'll look at case studies with Jesus Romero as well as Brian Hebel. Both of them are published authors. And then we'll talk about GovBrief a little bit, what we do with subject matter expert presenters. I'll give you some options on how to do that, as well as leveraging this engine to promote you like we do for Brian, as well as building your market and marketing your brand with case studies as SME. So we're going to give you another 5, 4, 3 to answer this poll for anybody that just popped in. We have 134 people so far. So we're going to give you another 3, 2, 1. Any last minute wallflowers, stragglers, whatever you want to call yourselves that have not responded. And that
let's give them a minute. Let's give them a minute, if you will.
A minute?
Yeah, let's give them a minute. Come on.
A minute.
I tell you why. I just wanted to thank, before we get started, Dave, if I may, to give a special shout out to my esteemed colleague, retired Senior Naval Intelligence Officer Jesus Romero, who is a prestigious member of the Intel community, retired. And we were blessed to have him join the ranks of our best-selling authors in both Spanish and English in a record time, and he has now become a legend and a media pundit. You're going to learn a lot from this man, and that's why we asked him to be on here today. So thank you, Commander Romero, for your presence today. We really appreciate you being here and making time out of your busy schedule.
Appreciate that very much. Who else is coming on here? You got another Dr. Rafael Marrero coming on. Let's stop that video.
My evil twin?
Not sure that somebody's hijacked your identity. That's all I know. All right. So Rafael Marrero bought you last 3%ers out there a chance to respond for 1 minute. So there you go. And I do want to provide some introductions to everybody. Rafael Marrero, based in South Florida, right, Rafa?
Yes, sir.
Has been a number one. He has also been you're also an author, number one.
3 best-time sellers. Yep, bestsellers.
3 bestsellers.
That's right.
He also has helped multiple companies and other folks like Jesus, right, Jesus? Helped you build your brand, helped you get out in front of folks with your PR engine. You have some hardware that you can show off. What do you got over there that you can show off a little bit? Just so you know who you're talking to and who's here. We have, show me, oh, there it is.
Right. Wait.
Look at that.
So let's try it. Here we go.
There you go. So tell us about those 2 awards you got there, Rafa. What the one's a Telly, right? I know what the one is.
Yeah.
What is?
Yeah, these are national awards. They're just as important as the Emmy. Just so you know, like national level awards. The Telly is a television award for best television series. We did a documentary. This was one that I produced on the life of CIA legend Rick Prado, who was the former head of counterterrorism at the Central Intelligence Agency, and we helped launch his book, which became an international bestseller. It's called Black Ops. It's still best-selling. It's now in paperback format. I was in charge of his public relations and media campaign. He calls me his breacher in the Spanish language market. I am officially and very proudly Rick Prado's breacher in the media community. And so we won this award, which is a prestigious award for that documentary. And we also won awards at Cannes. We won the several film festival awards, a total of about 15 awards, Dave, just on that documentary. And this one here is the Communicator Awards, which is also gold trophy for the work that I've done with documentaries, book publishing, and the Florida Association of Broadcast Journalists in the category of storytelling for a documentary that I did on veterans and PTSD. So we ourselves are content creators, and we're very, very busy supporting veterans and their causes in every way, shape, or form.
Love it. And appreciate your appreciation of that, everybody that's applauding and giving the hearts. We love it. A little dose about me on GovBrief. GovBrief is an online platform that I launched back in 2012. And the whole idea was to be able to help industry educate federal decision makers. And so what we do is we use our engine to go and promote educational sessions. The whole idea is to educate. And oh, by the way, when you educate, you become the subject matter expert. Don't you, Brian Hebel? You become the expert, which then provides you the...
Yeah, and I just got to say, Raphael's got the best sellers. I have the worst seller. It's how to market and sell to the government, a view from the inside. But guess what? I wrote the book not to sell books. I wrote the book to become the SME expert, of which I am in a couple different areas. So maybe I should have had Raphael back in 2015. But we are talking about another book I have coming out, of which I am an expert in. But it doesn't matter. You know, well, we'll talk a little bit more about me, but I was a government contracting officer for 32 of my 34-year career, and started doing training. And I'll talk about me a little bit later, Dave. But anyhow, but have relied on Dave Lowe's expertise to build my brand. I will say that without Dave, I wouldn't be successful where I am today.
Well, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you being here. Awesome. The only thing I'll say to everybody here is when I started this when I started in 2007, I had a client that asked me to help them sell into the government because there's a $68 billion contract. Money's going to fall from the sky. I was like, first of all, no, it's not. Second of all, I don't know a thing. I mean, zero, less than zero. I was at square zero. I didn't know anything. But a gentleman named Jim Williams, who headed up GSA FAS, took a meeting with me, and he helped me understand at least the framework. And then over the course of time, I've learned just a little bit about how this place works and developed some of the systems that drive behind GovBrief and the engine that runs. So I appreciate your shout out there, Mr. Hebel. Always love hanging out with you. And we are going to be talking about building your government brand as a SME, right? So Rafa, one of the biggest things about this is you're already the brand. You are your brand, right?
That's right.
So we're talking about building up you as a brand. And so this applies to both folks on the outside. I've never been on the inside. I've never been on the inside of government, but from the outside as well as the inside. For the govies that are here.
How many do we have, Dave? How many govies do we have?
I don't know how many govies hold on a second. Let's see. I'm going to share the results. Here we got. It's 50%.
Okay, good.
That work for the government right now.
Yep.
17% are retired, and then 44% are industry, work in industry.
Right.
Okay. We have a bunch of short answers. Go ahead. Yeah.
A good portion of the attendees, it's a little more than half, right? Are actual current government or former government employees, which is very important, right?
Yep. I want to show you this.
Yeah, and Dave, I'll just say, and once we get to whatever my story is going to be, and wherever I come in here, I do training with current federal employees that are on my training platform that have that ethics approval, and we'll start about that. So while you're in, and I wrote my book when I was in government, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. So for your government employees, it's about being an expert inside, but also on the outside. So we'll talk about that in a little bit.
I love it. We will definitely talk about that. So Rafa, let's talk about what you wanted to talk about here. We have self-representation. Yep. What is that exactly?
Well, it's important to understand that your brand is the perfume that you leave in a room when you leave, when you're no longer present, right? Basically the essence of who you are. Your reputation and image are very, very important in establishing credibility, right? So you need to bring receipts, you need to bring credentials to the table, because quite frankly, you're in a highly competitive market. And unless, like in the case of Brian brings 34 years, and clearly we joke around a lot amongst ourselves, but I have to give my due respect to Brian, right? Brian has 34 years of experience as a contracting officer. That counts. Experience matters, right? I would not question his level of expertise nor what he can bring to the table, because that's not my domain. I've been a contracting officer at the private sector level, his counterpart in the Fortune 500 world. But clearly, when it comes to the federal acquisition regulations and DFARS, Brian's the man, right? So I would definitely yield to his level of expertise. So the way he presents himself is very important. That image is very, very strong. And Brian has a very strong brand. He has a commanding presence. Everything from his photograph, from his executive portrait photo, to the way he comports himself and conducts himself on social media is very important. So the other point I want to bring out, and my background is in neurolinguistics and marketing, right? On the PR side, which is very important. Consistent messaging is very important. You have to ensure that your values, right, and expertise are consistently communicated and that they track across all platforms. I'm going to take a minute there to explain exactly what that means. For those of you on this webinar, it's very important for you to understand that the single most important platform for you as a subject matter expert is LinkedIn. I've done extensive psychographic, demographic, and scientific analysis of where the dollars come from, okay? And if you're in the business to government or the business to business market, you need to be honed in on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the platform. You're going to need video platforms to replicate and to and to reproduce your video content, such as YouTube, other people use Vimeo, etc., to make your websites lighter and easier to navigate from a density standpoint, and sustain throughput. But LinkedIn is your social media platform. If you're selling gadgets and widgets, you most likely want to have an Instagram account and a Facebook account. I would recommend also X as a backup platform to your LinkedIn platform. It's very, very important. Now, it's important. There are some important steps to create a compelling brand. A brand is everything, and there is a lot to be said about a brand name. And so the most important thing I would urge you to really consider is to put your phone on mute, number one. Number two, identify your unique value proposition, okay? What's your unfair advantage, right? When I think of David Lowe, I know what his unfair advantages are, right? I know that Dave has the single best market intelligence platform there is on the planet. And I know this even before we met each other and even before we did business together.
It's so true.
I sent him thousands of dollars of business before I even met the man. Why? Because I knew of his reputation, because my job was to professionally vet vendors, products, and services as a Fortune 500 C-level procurement executive, right? Responsible for billions of dollars in direct and indirect procurement. It was my job to know who was who and what was what. Dave had a great reputation. I knew what his unique value proposition was at the time. It has since grown because not only does he occupy the mental rung of market intelligence with Sam Radar and opportunities that show up before they even show up anywhere else, right? He also has this great platform that we're on right now called GovBrief, which I've seen since its incipient stages. I've seen it evolve. I understand what Dave represents, what Dave's brand name means. I understand his brand name equity, and it's important for you to understand what is that will distinguish you from the rest, okay? So secondly, develop a professional online presence. Dave, I can't stress this enough. People out there are penny wise and pound foolish. They go out there and they get themselves a schlocky website. They copy and paste stuff from other people's website. They plagiarize content, or they use non-royalty free graphics and things like that. Number one, it's going to land you in a heap of trouble. You're going to get takedown notices due to the Millennium Digital Copyright Act. And you're also going to have people upset at you, sending you cease and desist letters. In addition to that, the Google algorithms are no longer going to take you seriously because you're not investing the time and the resources necessary to polish your brand. If you don't take yourself seriously enough to develop a professional brand, why should others? That's the meta message here. That's very important. Okay, so utilize platforms. I'm going to strongly endorse Dave here because I know the power of GovBrief. I know what GovBrief has done for my business. I know what it's done for others. I will tell you that there's a buy versus build model in economics. As an economist, I can tell you this. In this case, it makes dollars and cents to hire someone like Dave and outsource. Leave the heavy lifting to someone like Dave who can do it and do it well and knows how to do it. You concentrate on delivering your message, right? So it's very important to utilize platforms like GovBrief, LinkedIn, and industry-specific platforms. Last but not least, engage. For those of you that see me on LinkedIn, you will see that I post at least 6 times a week, Dave. I post new articles every single day in my area of expertise. And I have, guess what, not one, but 2 separate newsletters. One that goes out on Saturdays every morning, rain or shine at 10 a.m., which is my Rafael Marrero and Company newsletter. And then now we have a Bravo Zulu Publishers newsletter for authors, for people who wish to publish their expertise and become known as the subject matter experts in their domain areas. So it's very important. Contribute to the discussion, add your grain of salt, add value to the discussion, be present. Next slide, please.
You bet. Hold on 1 second. I am fixing something. There we go.
Okay.
This is critical, by the way.
And I'll tell you right now, and Jesus can vouch for this, right? it's important to safeguard your reputation and intellectual property. We recently published these two beautiful books that you see here, Spanish and English, and soon in Portuguese, right? In Português Brasileiro, also soon, coming soon. Final Flight Queen of Air, which is available on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. And author Jesus Romero not only published the books and the brand and everything, we also got them registered and copyrighted by the United States Patent and Trademark Office. He has the certificates to prove that. We did that well under the 60-day threshold that is recommended, because if someone pirates your property and starts selling it on the internet as a PDF, guess what? You can't come after them, right? If you let time go by and you don't copyright your book. We also registered it in the U.S. Library of Congress. So he has his ISBNs, which were issued by our publishing house, and he's got everything copyrighted through our attorneys, which he engaged right away to get this registered. And guess what? He's already got his certificates to back up the fact that he owns the intellectual property on those books. That's very important, Dave, because anyone can hijack your stuff, start selling it on the black market, especially in the People's Republic of China, where they love doing this. It's the national.
No way. Chinese people doing it? Chinese government and everybody doing that? I can't believe it.
That's right. So that's very important. So anyway, consistently always conduct yourself with integrity, monitor social platforms to make sure that your content is not being jacked by anyone, address negative perceptions effectively and immediately. It's crises communications for those of you in the military and other diplomatic functions that you know that if you've been a public information officer or have been in that position, it's all in the response, right? So very, very important to have a readiness posture and know exactly how to engage and when to engage it, when to engage when you have negative content online or reviews. So there are platforms that allow you to do social listening and monitoring. Content distribution platforms, right, that you should seriously consider. If you want some recommendations, we can talk offline. Last but not least, like I mentioned before, have your legal protections and protect your brand elements, your trademarks, your service marks, copyright. Know the difference between using an R with a circle and a C for copyright and an SM for service mark and a TM for trademark. Very, very important to use the right disclaimers. We can help you with that as well. Next slide, please. Now, when it comes to GovBrief and using other government platforms, I'll tell you right now, leverage, harness the power of platforms such as this one. What I tell business owners is, do you want to be in the business of doing that which you can outsource, or do you want to be in the business of closing business and getting new accounts and attending to new customers? I'd rather be on the side of attending new customers and earning revenue and defer to the experts, the technical experts such as Dave, to manage a government-specific briefing platform such as GovBrief, or you can also address industry, like because Dave does it. You can use GovBrief to connect with officials like some of those here today, and also industry leaders in the Fortune 500 space, right? The General Dynamics of the world, the Lockheed Martins, SAICs, Northrop Grumman's, anyone that's out there, AT&T, Federal, anyone that's out there that is a Fortune 500 company that you wish to address, you can use a platform like this to conduct executive briefings, right? Very important to also, in terms of to have direct access to decision makers through these platforms, because it's like cutting to the front of the line. Sometimes, especially in today's age, it can take you months, if not years at times, to reach the right person. Well, with a tool like this, you can actually cut to the front of the line, literally, by inviting the right people and having them on the call or having them on the video chat, right? And you don't have to wait months for them to give you a space to free up. You can actually pitch your expertise and become the subject matter expert like we're doing here today, okay? And last but not least, it's very important to participate in relevant webinars. Use GovBrief, right, for targeted outreach. It's not about broadcast, it's about narrowcast, right? Laser beam focused narrowcast. And that's the power of speaking in platforms such as this one. Next slide, please.
Appreciate all that pump up, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute.
All right.
Love it. Thank you, Rob.
I figured I'd give it some context. I mean, and also vouch for it, because I've been
Yeah.
a direct beneficiary of it as a business owner.
Well, that's what I love is that both of these things, being a subject matter expert is not unique to GovBrief or being an author. It's, I think you're painting the picture that it is, and it's an and message, not an or message. You want to continue to grow into that. Hang on one sec. We do have, I will get to the questions in just a minute, and Joan's got a hand up. We'll get to you in just a minute, Joan. Go ahead. Let's talk about the other outlets, right? We're talking about also media, right? Because you do a lot of work on
Totally. Yeah. The beauty of becoming a published author, Dave, and you've experienced this. I mean, we've traveled the United States together. We've got some great war stories. We've gone to the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce annual legislative summit. We've been to New Mexico, Albuquerque a couple times, right? At the Los Alamos labs. We went to the Washington. We've been to Philadelphia. I mean, all over the United States, right? With national presentations. We've walked the halls of the U.S. Senate and met delegations from Texas.
We're going to leave that. We'll tell that story later if anybody wants to hear, because it is hilarious.
So if one thing media has afforded me, and then we'll get to John's question, which is a very good one, it has afforded me the opportunity to become established as a media subject matter expert and media pundit, Dave. I have a segment every week, as does Commander Romero here, who has a law and order and national security weekly segment on prime time television. Sometimes he's on 15, 20 minutes during prime time at 7 p.m. And it's broadcast nationwide, CONUS-wide, and also through DirecTV. It goes all over the globe, but mostly LATAM and the island of Puerto Rico. So we've got a subject matter expert here who can vouch for that, how publishing has allowed him and afforded him the opportunity to now be a media expert whenever there's a national security or air traffic related anything happening with counter-narco terrorism. Mr. Romero, Commander Romero, is a person that they call, and guess what? He's first on these programs and addresses audiences and takes questions. And now he's the go-to person, and he's done this in little under a year after his many years of distinguised service, of course.
Hey, Jesus, can you tell us what that's like to go from having that very little exposure to being on like huge media outlets? What is that like? Because I've been on a couple of things, but not like that.
Well, that's a great question, and you are never going to be prepared enough from just being an SME doing your regular known work or the stuff that you do on a regular basis to having been having published a book and in 120 days becoming a subject matter expert in the civilian world as well. I'm going to tell you right now that Rafa gave me ample warning to be ready. And you can never be too ready. I assured you of that. I went from just publishing the book, which is pretty busy, to now speaking engagements and being interviewed sometimes 2-3 times per day.
Wow.
I assured you that I am more tired now than my time when I was in civil service. I was working pretty hard. And so the truth is that you have to find some way to be prepared, and you have to find people and alike so that you make that transition as smooth as possible as you can. But then you learn along the ways, and everything that these guys are telling you right now, that's exactly what I've done. I've done some things purely out of instinct, but instinct is not going to get you there. It simply is not. But when you combine the powers of everything that we're listening to today, I guarantee you it's like taking your spear and taking a sharpening stone to that spear, and it opens incredible doors.
And you're living it right now. I mean, if you're on real media, if you're on the mainstream, you're on mainstream media too, right? That's what we're talking about a lot.
Jesus Romero comes into your houses every day.
That's right.
Every day. So if you don't want your media at your house, do not follow this. I'm just kidding. So, but you can manage this, and I think what's important, what you just said, Jesus, is that having someone that can coach you, like Rafa, to be able to coach you into, hey, pay attention because it's coming, and then how to kind of manage that so it does because burnout can be a thing too, right?
Yep.
And so I appreciate that very much. So I know that there's a lot of benefits, and you mentioned targeted exposure. That's kind of my world, but with what you're talking about here in preparation and your strategies and preparation tips that you're talking about in that third bullet, what does it mean to develop a media outreach plan? What does that mean?
Is that for me or for Jesus?
I don't care. Either
Okay.
one, both.
All right, so let me start. Go ahead. I'll start, and then I'll yield to Jesus. So, what we did in Commander Romero's case, we started in January. We were going to publish the book in June, right? So we started our media work and kind of warming up the bench, the arm, if you will, right, the dugout. We started warming up the bullpen, I should say, warming up that arm and pitching in January, and we did a pre-release kind of tee-up strategy where he came to Miami, and we did a 3-day tour with like military precision. It was like all the venues that we needed to target, and we hit print media, television, radio, all the top media personnel to really get his name out there. And we started like the buzz around Commander Romero's book, and the fact that he was publishing such a highly relevant book that touched upon Maduro and the FARC and the cartel of the Suns in Venezuela, and just to really touch the nerve, right, to like really strike a nerve there, we got people's attention right away. And then Telemundo did a nationwide article. I mean, he became like the talk of the town. News spread like wildfire, and he became like right away a sought after commodity, so much that he had a full-time media team working basically to attend to his media needs, because they started like bombarding him with questions, and he would punt them over to us, and we would schedule interviews because we didn't want him to burn out. So it really started like 6 months before, and we got a lot of radio, television, internet interviews. Dave, just to give you an idea of how much coverage this man received in his book, one of his YouTube videos that was repeated from the website got 1 million views, like 1 million views. These are not paid bots. These are people from a television channel that are actually interacting. Like in 3 days, it had like 600,000 views. I mean, talk about going viral, right? In addition to that, we published an article in Diario Las Americas, which had more than 10 million readers. 10 million readers. So Jesus Romero became a household name, and we teed it off this way to kind of get the build up anticipation, and then we started the pre-release campaign like May, right, Jesus? Like right. May, and then here's the thing, right? We wanted to make sure that we published the Spanish edition before the elections in Venezuela, because Commander Romero makes some very, very big revelations in this book, and we wanted to make sure that the democratic opposition to dictator Nicolas Maduro was informed of these things. And guess what? Because he was making some big revelations in the book, we actually met that goal, and I'll let him talk about the importance of this and the impact that it has. Commander?
Yeah, so in January, I thought that I was the supreme subject matter expert. Well, I was in my industry, in my book. I did a poll of people that had written a book in LinkedIn, and I quickly discovered a couple of things. It says that you're never prepared enough, and you're never are going to do enough research. And so after having spoken to 3 authors that I have the most respect for, it quickly dawned on me that if you want it to be successful, and you have to define what your success is going to be. If you're simply looking at publishing a book, well, if that's your goal, well, good for you. But if your goals are more ambitious than that, I want to publish a book because it's going to further my professional career, and it's going to expand. It's going to expand me as a subject matter expert in the industry. I want to set more goals, and I want to reach more people that I've never reached before. It's kind of like the same thing that influencers are using to put themselves in a position in the media platforms where they start with a few followers, and within a year or two, they amass 200,000, 250,000 followers. You're kind of like doing the same thing, but you're doing it in a way that goes into your branding. And so it's not just Jesus Romero, it's Jesus Romero, the author, the intelligence professional with 37 years of a career, who is exposing a real threat to our world. And here's his book. Well, now I'm looking for conferences and seminars and teaching moments and instructions at law enforcement academies and in the international community. So you decide very early on how much you want to take on. And realistically, you have to ask yourself a question: how much I'm going to really be able to take? And I'm happy to say that the reality of things started setting in after our publishing campaign, when Rafa said, you better be ready. And I didn't really believe him a whole lot. I did talk to Rick Prado, who is the author of the other book, and he said, I was overwhelmed when this thing started. And so I was able to get good, solid advice.
Mm-hmm. And that's all you can ask for, right, Jesus? And what you just said is you parlayed this into, hey, speaking at professional associations, speaking at conventions, being the subject matter expert for specific areas. And Rafa, you and I have done chambers of commerce. We've done other things. And then you also look at benefits and opportunities of those speaking engagements, right? And how that then creates partnerships and additional partnerships. And Brian's the same way. Brian and I connected after he wrote his book. Rafa's pulling me through the process of writing my own book, so that I can be a real deal subject matter expert myself, like Jesus. I love what you got.
Coming soon, baby. Coming soon.
That's right. It's coming. And then and what I love is that for folks that have not done it before, I've never done it before. I wrote an ebook. That doesn't count. Just so you know, that doesn't count in comparison to what's happening here. So the other thing that we want to point out real quick is that this can also get you in front of Congress, right? You could be an expert that they pull in to talk, right?
Well, that did happen. And so my book, I wasn't able to attend the congressional testimony, but my book did. And so the book did the speaking for me. It was about the United States taking on the realities of the air threats, something that came up out of the 9/11 Commission. And after the cocaine trafficking and the cocaine shipments from the Venezuelan government and the FARC and the ELN, when I decided to write that book and make the revelations, that book made it all the way to the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's phenomenal.
And Dave, this book here served as a basis for the investigations on China right now, which is my book on U.S.-China relations, right? America 2.0, the U.S. War of Independence from China. So I wrote this book during the pandemic, and this was hand-delivered to many of the U.S. representatives and members of Congress that are now investigating China. So I'm glad to have been the author of and the promoter of books of high relevance and that promote change, which is what Bravo Zulu is all about.
And I think that also lends itself to, hey, it's wonderful to get the accolades. It's wonderful to have that kind of influence. But what I love is actually doing good things and and bringing things to light. And your book, Jesus, led to, you're talking about, hey, taking down somebody that's majorly in the cartels, right? I mean, and that's no
correct.
joke. I don't know about everybody what you got up and did this morning, but I didn't do that.
But we took down, we actually dismantled one of the main cocaine trafficking organization that was sending hundreds of metric tons per year to the U.S. at a whopping sum of over $3 billion industry per year.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that the main provider of aircraft to the cartels, it's an American woman, 62-year-old, chief executive officer of her own company. Who would have ever known that that would have been the case in a world where you're being fed what the media wants to feed you? So the reality and the truth are two different things, but in the end, we were able to take down and dismantle this organization.
That's a great job of smacking the media in the face at the same time you're leveraging all their influence. I love that. So I love this too. Authority, recognition, credibility. That is exactly what publishing does for you. And I've seen you're a living example. So is you three are all authors. I'm a soon to be author, so I'm doing it. So I do have a question, and we're going to answer. We're going to get unmutified Joan in 1 second. Joan,
Yep.
have you ever published a book? Yes, you have. Have you written one, but never put it out to publish, or not yet? All right, Joan, good body. Go ahead. And, what's your question, Joan? You had your hand up for so long. I know your arms got to be tired by now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just wanted to correct something that was said. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Something
Good.
I do have an expertise on. He said that when he published the book, he went to the Patent and Trademark Office to publish the book. You don't go to the trademark,
no.
only as the library. It must have been misspoke. I just wanted to, but I mean, you were saying-
Copyright it. We
Yeah,
copyright it.
the copyright is Library of Congress only. I am also a librarian as well as a patent examiner, so.
And see, we make mistakes too, Joan.
Well, I know that. I just thought he misspoke because everything he said makes me think that they really know what they're doing. I'm going, why did he say that?
Well, there you go. Correction has been made. We're going to put that in. And that's not even a correction on page 9. We're putting that on page 1. How about that? Trademark.
But can
Trademark
I
comes
ask
different
one
place.
question?
Copyright, right?
Do you mean published a book or do you mean published anything?
For
No,
me?
we published my book.
Yeah,
And
I know that. No, I meant on the question.
Oh,
On the
I've
question.
never published a book.
have you ever
I've never
published a book?
but I've written about 100 articles.
Me
and
too.
published.
I've done a lot of that, but I've never published a book. So that's the clarification. Is that good, Joan?
Yeah.
All right, now you can answer that question. Appreciate you. Patricia Glenn raised her hand. Go ahead, Patricia. What you got?
Hi, I'm a former government worker that specializes in suicide prevention. And I've written a lot of articles outside of the government because I've also worked for nonprofits specific for suicide prevention. That is my subject matter expertise for the past 15 years. And so I've been quoted in like the Military Times. John Hopkins has quoted some things, and my friends have said recently, like, you do know that you don't kind of put out the folks that you've been connected to. And I'm on LinkedIn and I'm wondering, should I add that publication to my LinkedIn profile? And I've also recently, to be more disciplined about my craft as I've transitioned out of the government, I've just created my landing site. And to your point, I make sure that it was professional and that it looked the part. But I'm just wondering if I need to kind of promote or market myself in a way that's stronger than what I'm doing now.
Would you agree that promotion is the key and marketing is the key, Rafa?
Promotion and marketing are fundamental. We also offer a free, no obligation, one-on-one private consultation where we can give you recommendations on that.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Fantastic. You're welcome, Patricia. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about this because there's opportunities for you to become the authority, the recognition, the credibility, building that trust. Starting the process begins with talking with Rafa. That's what you're going to do. And I'm going to share this real quick. I'm ending the poll. We have 10% that have published a book before. 6% have written one but never published it, and 84% not quite yet. We appreciate that.
Mhm.
So start the process. Hey, start with that brainstorming session, right? Create
Yep.
that outline. So you help them with that, right?
We
And
start
then you help them craft
Q&A
that
session.
message.
Yep. A Q&A session, we typically have a brainstorming session, and then we put together a detailed outline of the book or the project that they're wanting to move forward with, whether it's a podcast or whatever it is, but typically a book, right? So we'll put together the underlying notions that want to be expressed there. We'll do research to see if there's any other published books, if there are any other published books that intersect with it from an IP perspective, right? And also what contributions, if any, what does it bring to the table? Is what we do ROI analysis. We recently did that for someone who's wanting to publish a book also, right? They wanted to ask us, well, what chances of success do we have? What possibilities of success? What are the probabilities that this book is going to sell, right? So we actually did some tangible ROI analysis for this person based on the subject relevance, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we do at the very beginning stages. We put together a comprehensive outline. We talk about the books. We select a working title, and then we build from that, right? And then we want to make sure that we have a clear and compelling narrative, right? And many cases, and this is the case with most law enforcement personnel that I've met, at least, and many intelligence officers also, they're good at writing 302s if they're in the FBI's, or they're writing sworn statements. They look like sworn affidavits, right, of a case, right, or criminal complaints. But they don't understand how to turn that into a book that is something that the reader can engage with. We can provide writing coaches that are experts in their area, whether it's former military, former intel, project program managers, right? I happen to know a thing or two about Lean Six Sigma and program management. So if you're looking for a project, someone who understands your craft, we will marry you up with the right person to make sure that person is your coach and is in charge of your literary project. Right?
Hey, Dave, you know what I found out?
What'd
You know what I found out being retired now for 7 years? I found out before I left the government and after I left, I was doing all that stuff. And the longer I've been consulting and creating stuff, I don't want to do that stuff. I just want to turn it over to somebody that like Raphael. And I haven't worked with Raphael. And Jesus, congratulations on your success there. But I don't want to do that stuff. Like I want to do what I think I'm good at, and you learn what you're good at, later on. But I just like having somebody like Raphael, even though Raphael, we're going to work together with my new book coming out, but I just don't want to do that stuff, so you'll find I have somebody do my LinkedIn pages now. I don't do my LinkedIn. I don't even look at it. I just don't want to do it. I'm working with clients, writing and creating other training classes anyhow, but
because you want to do what you
like Raphael is there.
And from a consulting standpoint, for all of us that are consultants out there, focus on your core. Focus on your core. Do what you do better than anybody else. Let everybody else take the rest of the riffraff, right? Like for instance, paperwork, not my gig. Somebody else. In fact, she's on here. Her name is Desiree, and she handles she's like, Dave is the total madman that doesn't understand process, and she just processes me out. So that's a beautiful thing. But I do like what you have here too. So when you start the process, you craft your narrative, but then you want to have your tone, and it's the tone of what is engaging to readers, but also is congruent with your tone, Brian, and your tone, Jesus, and your tone, Rafa, and then and my tone when my book comes out, right? Because if we're not focusing on the tone and understanding that, hey, we got to separate ourselves and actually appeal, right? And
hey Dave, we used to have, it's kind of interesting. We used to have an administrator. I worked for the Medicare headquarters for 28 years, but our former administrator, a guy by the name of Don Berwick, he used to say when we would institute programs, jump off the building and build your wings on the way down.
Yeah.
right? Love that. And my saying, which I think I made it up. Maybe somebody else made it up. I don't know. But I always say, I don't know where I'm going, but I know I'm going to get there. So
I love that.
So the great thing about like writing a book or, creating whatever it is you want to create, the fun part is figuring out where it's going to take you on the road, right? Like, hey, Seuss, you didn't know where all this stuff was going to take you, but you had an idea. Like, I'm always looking for an opportunity. And like, I wrote a fiction book in 2018, right? Spent a year writing it. I probably needed Raphael to help me market it, but it got good reviews on GoodReads, but it didn't sell hardly any of them. But that's not for us people that like to create. That's not what the goal is. The goal is putting it out there and see where it goes. And the fun part is seeing where you get at the end of the road. But somebody like Raphael or Dave will help. And Dave, if it wasn't for Dave, I probably wouldn't be making a quarter of the money that I'm making today. And whenever you want me to talk about that, Dave, we'll get there.
We'll talk about that in a minute. I want to say, to let Patricia Glenn say, she's written several books on daily affirmations, children's books on emotions, and gets stumped at the publishing point. Do a lot of online posts and thousands of responses. So it makes her feel like she's getting behind. How should I address my motivation and find support for the next steps? And that is coach.
Absolutely. Coaching. And then not all forms of publishing are created equal, right? Sometimes independent publishing and craft publishing is the way to go. There are the main, everyone thinks of getting a Random House deal or a Penguin Books deal or going to St. Martin's Press, and they don't realize that sometimes retaining your creative and intellectual property rights and even doing it on a smaller scale, like Brian is talking about here, may have a more significant impact. It's not about signing that big book deal, but making a big impact, right, with your book. Yeah. And that's where we
I didn't make a lot of money on the book, but made a lot of money doing my consulting, my training, and all the offshoots.
There you go.
And I didn't know where that was going to go.
There it is.
I want to make sure that you hear this from me. I want to be a spokesperson for those people that have dreams about doing anything they want. In particular, about writing a book or writing a manual or writing anything. Don't let anybody tell you that it's wrong or it's bad or that it's not going to sell. You're the one that decides the purpose and the reason why you want to publish. If I wanted to publish a book to make money, then I would be in the wrong business. I am going to make some money. I'm not going to be making millions, but I am going to be getting my word out, which is what I wanted from the beginning. I wanted to be heard. I wanted my voice to penetrate a larger audience. And I knew that I was limited by what I had to work with at that point. But man, once that book was published, it was like a burning bush. And it doesn't matter what it really is. There is a large audience for what you want to put out. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I wrote my manuscript thinking that I was this great SME because I had been in the government for 37 years. Well, my very first shock was when I was told, well, look, that manuscript it's kind of like, okay, but we're going to have to start from another point. Oh, and I said, what point would that be? From chapter number 1.
So the big eraser came out on you. That's what I just heard. Hey, real quick.
It helped me to put my thoughts where they needed to be. I'm not a subject matter expert in writing a book.
Ooh.
I went and got a subject matter expert to help me put the book together.
That's it. And I love that. And Kevin Wood says, I think I'm missing something. Write a book. I hate writing.
Hey, Dave, I will say on my SAT score in college, going to high school or college, I think a monkey could have gotten a higher SAT score. But here, working on my third book, good rating. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You just need to go out. As Jesus said, just go out and do it.
I love it.
And the hard part, I don't know about
the government. The best place for you to make mistakes when you write, it's the government. It's the most forgiving organization in the world that allows you to get away with very poor, ill-written statements.
Oh my
Hey,
God.
Jesus,
Hold
I have
on.
to ask though, when you hit that button to put your book out there, that was hard to do, wasn't it? That first time, because people are going to judge you.
I was
That was
scared.
hard.
All right.
Yeah, I'm
All
not
right,
scared.
so-
Second one, nah. Third one, I'll just put it out there. I don't really,
All right. So
people are going to judge you.
William Ayers is saying, do you have a SME for gov contractors not primed to get more contracts? Actually, that would actually be me. That's one of the SMEs, but I'm not the only SME because Brian's one of those SMEs and Rafa's one of those SMEs. And even Jesus is one of those SMEs because he also runs a business, right? That's the idea. So we do want to get you through this. Becoming a best-selling author, you can start your journey as a SME. That's it. And then getting professional certifications, leveraging that. We're going to give you an opportunity to do that. I do want to
Dave, but let me just say, and we got a lot of people in the government, you can do it while you're still in the government. I wrote my book when I was still in the government. The training platform I have current government people go in and get the ethics approval. I had to get ethics approval to write the book. You always do the right thing, right, Jesus? Do the right thing, help people, things always work out. But you go to ethics, you don't do anything to violate their trust, and you want to make sure they can't, market back to the people in their agency, but we market nationwide through Dave's GovBrief. And Dave markets my stuff nationwide, and I have current government people doing the training with me. So you can do it while you're in government. You just got to do it legally. Here we got legal and ethics.
And there are forms that you fill out. You filled these out, and other people that we've worked with, right, Brian? We know that these have to get filled out, and you can do it right now. And you can also do GovBrief, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute, and the ethics. We'll get back to the ethics in just a minute. I do want to make sure we keep ourselves rolling just a little bit. I'm going to ask if you would like to publish, to explore publishing a book. I think this is the right one. Oh, that's not it. We'll launch that one after the next one. I'm sorry, I didn't see that one. Okay, like to explore writing a book, publishing your manuscript, and marketing your expertise. And a lot of this that we're doing, right, guys, this weaves together. Being able to be a presenter is also part of that, right? Jesus, it's not just so that you write the book. Because do you want to write another 15 books?
No.
No. You want to leverage the book that you wrote in every form that you possibly can, right? So that it continues to get the word out, because every one of us, we have that desire to be heard, right? Every one of us has the desire. We also want to do good things, right, Brian and Rafa?
Yeah. I mean, I was down in the trenches, I was a division director most of my career, getting contracts done. I wasn't an SES or anything like that. So I wrote the book. So as soon as you write the book, I was an expert. I was an expert in my field. But you write a book, people think you're really smart because you can present it to them in a way that they can understand it. So it really just helped my, jumping off and retiring and trying to do this, worked out from that standpoint.
Awesome. And Trish is asking to connect with you on LinkedIn, Jesus.
Oh, I welcome it.
Yeah. So let her just pop it into the Q&A. Can you answer the Q&A, or is it me that has to do it?
There's not that many Jesuses out there.
All right. And there's also podcasts as Rafa's putting out, and because Joe's asking the question about, hey, is the preferred publishing is publishing like books? Is that your preferred platform? What about podcasts? What about YouTube? What about things like GovBrief? We're going to talk about that as well. So,
I still think you got to get the book out there. It's just, if you write an article, people write articles all the time. You get a book, it's done, it's out there. Mine's 9 years old. I still sell a couple copies. I pass them out for free. I think you have to write the book if you really want to have something that's solid and go last. Then the other stuff, in my opinion, is ancillary. Raphael, you're the expert, but I think the book just gives you really credibility.
The book is important. You can't have a podcast without a book. In my case, my book paved the way because it became an international bestseller, right? Literally. And then our podcast was top ranked by Apple Podcasts, 4 continents, Dave, 4.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was fire, and we were doing it all in-house, all the production, all the sound effects. It was great, but it was due to the book. You cannot just go from zero to hero without publishing. That's very important.
I will say that. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Jesus.
Brian.
This is important. The one contract that I was able to get last year mentioned in the requirements is has the SME published any professional books or manuals? And we did. We had a professional manual, and we were just submitting the book for approval and all of that stuff. So they did, and it got us up on top of other competitors. I think that we outcompeted 3 other people that applied for the same contract, and we were the only ones that had professionally done books before.
That's awesome.
Right.
Yeah, and I will say, Dave, just to say, like in my case, like I help people win contracts or manage the contracts they have. I do training inside government to the government officials on CPARs. We do a simulated technical evaluation panel training for our crash course. But one thing that I haven't heard a little bit, although I mentioned I don't want to do what Raphael does, but with that, I've relied on other colleagues who, we just have credibility, trust, we value, and we trust each other. I have other colleagues, I pull them in and they help me build other curriculum, and then we do it together. So you just can't, you just can't. And so when I started doing my training, I developed my own database of 20,000 people, right? And once I started training, my numbers went down, my numbers were going down. That's when I hooked up with GovBrief. And when I hooked up with GovBrief, my numbers just went through the top. And that was right when COVID, a little bit after COVID was hitting. And, we I've been doing training for 4 years now. I've trained about 4,000 people. But if it wasn't for Dave and GovBrief, I wouldn't be doing my consulting. So, but I hook in former colleagues who know a little bit better than me and trust Dave. And that's how I've built my brand, and it will continue going for the next 15 years. Because, once you create the material, the training, I do it over and over and over again, what people want and what they buy into. So just FYI, Dave.
I appreciate it, man. And in fact, we're going to talk about that now, where with GovBrief, I haven't written my book yet, and I know I'm behind these other 3 characters here, but I have become a SME, and I have grown my consultancy base. I've helped other folks grow their consultancy base, as Brian has said. We're going to show you a little bit about why GovBrief is different than any other platform, and to show you how you can get paid while you grow your client base. A lot of folks said, hey, I want to be a consultant. Right? You're going to hang your shingle out when you're retired. Here's how you can get paid while you're growing your consultancy base. It took me a long time to figure this out. So I'm going to explain it to you and give you examples of how we do that. And we're going to talk about also how you can market to federal decision makers. If you are in industry, you want to be the SME. I think somebody else was asking that question as well, to say, hey, who was that asked that question about becoming a subject? Oh, William Ayers said, hey, I want to be a subject matter expert and be able to get contracts with the federal government. So there's 2 different things that we created here with interagency briefings and industry briefings, 2 different sides of the house. One goes to the govies, one goes to industry, and we can actually market to both if we want to, right? So if you think about, and this is the foundation that I started back in 2012. It doesn't matter what you sell, doesn't matter whether you're doing products or services, there's a buyer in the federal government for everything, right, Brian? There's a buyer for everything. So the question is, how do we differentiate ourselves? We differentiate ourselves by being the SME, by being the educator. And that gives us the ability to influence that marketplace and get our stuff out there. And what do federal government decision makers want us to do? They want us to help solve their problems. But we can't solve their problems if we can't get their ear. Everybody agree with that? We cannot even start the process of solving their problems if we can't get their attention. So how do we do it? One way that we're different is that we have the database that Brian's talking about. We have 3.8 million industry contacts, 77,000 federal buyers like procurement folks like Brian. And then we have program managers and other influencers and employees that work for the government. This is how we also can drive business to companies as a result of the database. We have been the education platform for a while. We were cool before COVID, even before Brian came on board. we were cool doing virtual sessions, and we focus exclusively on feds. That's our world. We've had other folks asking us to do state and local. That's not our play. We're probably going to move a little bit into that because of another client that's coming on this week. But over 110,000 attendees, millions of dollars in follow-on consulting revenue, which is what Brian's talking about. The book didn't make you the money, right, Brian? The consulting made you the money.
It didn't make me an expert though, and I didn't even know I was an expert until I wrote the book.
Exactly.
And people say you're an expert.
So speaking of that, this is what it looks like on GovBrief when you're the expert. And you can leverage this right now. You can become the subject matter expert, making sure that folks are getting an understanding of what you do. And it's just like Rafa is going to take you all the way through the process. VIP, white glove treatment is, hey, doesn't matter whether you've ever done this before or not. We manage the whole entire process from start to finish, creating the agendas, pushing the information out, providing a professional host, and even putting you on the on-demand library. I'm going to use this couple examples. Brian's right here. So we do industry briefings. What does this mean? We push messages out to industry, right, Brian?
Yep.
You're educating the industry on CPARs, on FAR, on TEP panels, right?
Yep.
And that becomes
And expiring contracts at agencies.
Yep.
I'm a data expert too.
Yep.
Ought to write a book about FPDS data, but anyhow, yep.
Yep. And so when you start, and we, because he and I both are data nerds, we dig into those things and we provide that to our audience. And I say our audience because a lot of times it's the same folks. They just need to know about the FAR, so they need Brian, or they need to know about the intel, like Rafa was talking about earlier. That's my domain. So we help people understand how to leverage that, and that can be anybody that has expertise. And you have expertise. Everybody here has expertise, and as Brian said, he didn't even know it. So the second thing that's under the GovBrief brand. We push out our messaging just like we do with Brian sometimes, but we also co-brand, which means we're marketing your brand. It starts out in the GovBrief umbrella. I'm going to use an example in just a minute, but what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we don't just want to build GovBrief's brand. We want to leverage GovBrief's brand to build your brand. And we provide this with underneath our umbrella. We market just like we do with Brian, just like we do with Rafa, right? We're doing the same thing with you, right, Rafa?
That's right.
And so it's a stepping stone to just separating from GovBrief, still use the engine of GovBrief. We'll talk about that in a minute. But here we have Federal Benefits Advisory Group. If you have we still have Govies here. How many Govies have gotten an email that looks like this to say, hey, we're going to help you understand your federal benefits, to do federal benefits training? That is marketed by GovBrief. We push it out and we drive them to Chad and his group. Why? Because they're experts in federal benefits and they help make sure that you have what you need from your federal benefits. It's just that simple. And we just had one. It was over 600 attendees that came. So we can do co-branded under the GovBrief umbrella. Finally, we have the ability to promote you and your brand under using the GovBrief engine. So you're hosting it, and we're moving Raphael into this exact space. It's exactly where Brian is, right, Brian? You're hosting it, right?
Yep.
We leverage our database to market from your domain, and you can do whatever you want with the dates. It's not restricted by anything that GovBrief has, because we can only market so much under the GovBrief umbrella. Otherwise, people get crazy. If you send them 15 emails a day, imagine that, Brian. People get nuts about that. So there's no restrictions on your subject matter. You can take it any avenue you want to, and we'll make sure that the engine goes. And this is actually Brian's brand, acquisitionhelp.com. That's you, right, Brian?
Yep. All current and former feds except one person there.
Yep. Current, did you hear that? Current and former feds, all, because he's the insider bringing insider information to industry and also back into the govies, right? You're training govies
Yeah.
too.
And Jesus mentioned it, and I mentioned it, like Jesus being 37 years, me being 34. People on the outside want to know how we think on the inside. That's part of our value and our brand, to let them know how we think, because they just don't have any idea how inside government functions. So for the government people that are SMEs, or for the industry people, you want to be a SME, maybe on the industry side, team with somebody, but that's what they want to know. And that's why you can be a SME, while you're in or while you're outside.
And does it work, Brian?
It works. It works. Been doing it now. Dave's been team with you for at least 4 years.
Yeah.
And, we keep getting great numbers. And then, I get some clients from that way. And I'm not looking for clients, but they just can tend to come. But if somebody calls me up, I'll just tell you the other part of being a SME. If somebody calls me up and wants help, I'll just help them for free, give them a half hour of time. You just figure, help people do the right thing, and everything else takes care of itself.
That is so true.
I used to
Now
work for free.
What's that, Jesus?
I remember when I used to work for free.
Yeah. And we all do the same thing, right? We do help people because they need help. We do need to make money though, and that's what we want to do. We want to be able to present and leverage as well. But the objective, my folks, I'll tell you this, when it came to me presenting, this started back in like 3.5, 4 years ago. They were telling me I'm giving way too much stuff. And I said, nobody is going to pay to hear me talk. I was wrong. My team, Aisha on my team is the one that brought that up. And she said, you give too much stuff away for free. To your point, Jesus. And I was like, nobody's going to pay. Guess what? I crossed over $1 million 3 months ago in just speaking engagements on GovBrief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's $1 million from people paying to hear me talk.
Yeah,
And
but
Jay
Dave,
Talbot's one of them.
Dave, I will say, sometimes we try something and it doesn't work, but you have
That's
to
right.
get out there, you have to try it, and you don't know. Dave and I, and we're not ready to release it, but we have a software subscription product coming out for industry, right?
Yep.
And you go out there and you push it, and we don't know where it's going to go, but you just push things out there, and they're going to lead you somewhere good usually.
Yep. So
Did you say
we also
1
help with the
million?
ethics.
1 million?
What's that?
Did you say 1 million?
1 million.
Very good.
But ultimately, we built the consulting business. So the other thing we help with, like Rafa does, is, hey, Brian's a former Govie. He wrote his book while he was still a Govie, right, Brian?
Yep.
Right.
So
They wouldn't really let me market it to, like, within my agency. So I released it, put it on LinkedIn, put it on, Amazon, and but people bought it, and and then once I retired, so it worked out just to be a SME from that standpoint.
Yep. So for everybody that's a consultant, wants to be a consultant, or is a trainer, written things, or is a SME now in some form or fashion, there's a place for us to be able to help you. That's a fact. So one of the things that we're going to do is say, hey, would you like to explore? I'm going to see about if I can pull that other poll up that I launched at the wrong time, just to make sure you guys can do what you need to do. I would like to. This poll ended. Let me see if I can relaunch this. Let me relaunch the poll. There you go. There it is. So if you'd like to explore that, it's very simple. I'm going to give you a link also in the chat, because that's the pre-qualification form. Do we accept everybody? No, we don't accept everybody, do we, Rafa? Because some people aren't quite ready to go. But we will help you get ready to go. We'll give you the advice to be able to go. And if you would like to, fill out that form. You can be a SME on GovBrief. We'll go through the process, whether you have any experience in presenting or not. I've helped people that are engineers that are scared to death in front of people, right, Rafa?
Absolutely.
And we help them become and leverage their expertise. They may not be the best speakers. That's okay.
We
In
train them,
fact,
though,
that's
Dave.
even
We train
What?
them. The important thing is, you've got to lose that fear. And the important thing is there's people here to help you, right? You need to overcome that fear. And there's only one way to overcome that fear, and it's by doing it, right? By taking that one step and getting help, right? The world changes, Dave, when you're on the side of government and you can marshal all these resources at your disposal and to just becoming Joe Blow now, right? To go into the private sector. And that's very important. And that correlation of forces is something that you really need to understand, because guess what? The moment you take off the uniform, you can no longer give orders and have people obey you, right? That's number one. Number two, you're not going to be able to marshal the resources of the federal government, nor will you have the brand name equity that comes with being with the United States government, right? So you need to start building your own brand name equity, and that's what these platforms here offer. There's one way to do it. We can help, right? That's what GovBrief is, and that's what Bravo Zulu Publishers does.
Yeah. And like you say, these two things weave in together because it leverages your SME status. It helps you establish it, and it helps you leverage it. And just like with Brian and my company, I used to do representation in DC. That was my job. Remember, I told you I didn't have any experience with that at the beginning? No experience. They hired me to do representation in DC. I didn't know anything. But as I learned and I became a subject matter expert from my own experiences and from learning from other folks' experiences, just like you, Brian, you were talking about bring other people in. They have insight. They have expertise. You can team up with other people and become a powerhouse. That's how we became a powerhouse, is by teaming up with folks like Rafa and folks like Brian and other people. So as
I assure you that people probably that are participating in today's webinar are probably subject matter expert, and they love their jobs. They really love the fact that they're experts at what they do. And many of those people consider themselves introverts. I assured you that once you make a transition from leaving the government into the civilian world or moving on from that job, that the only person that has the key to unlock the power, it's you. And people want to hear you. What the difference is that there is a thirst and hunger for what you have to say. And if you are able to present what your expertise is, people want to hear you. They're not worried or concerned about whether or not you're smiling enough or whether or not you're standing correctly or not. People actually want to hear what you have to say. And that's the power.
And Jesus, just taking on that, I won't do anything unless I think it's going to provide value for the people. Somebody comes to me, and I guess Dave's saying the same thing.
Same thing.
You know, I don't do it because you got to provide good value in marketplace. But when we do training now through GovBrief, we get people from we've had people from India, Japan, Mexico City, Sweden. It's just crazy. We get people from around the world, mostly from around the country. Where before I could only do training locally in DC. Now I'm doing it. We are 10% of the people are from DC. That's the beauty of it. You can reach markets, I'm going to say, around the world. It's just crazy.
We're international, baby.
We train foreign nation partner members in a three-day course. By the end of the 3 days, we received the highest accolades of the delivery that we provided. And it was foreign partners that were telling the State Department, you guys got to bring those people back. We just didn't have enough. 3 days wasn't enough. And I think that that's the power. I think that that's the hunger that you want to leave behind. People want to hear what you have to say. Like you said, it's the deliverable. It's the value added.
I could not agree more. We do have some people that are asking this question.
Go ahead.
And I'll tell you, and there's 43% want to market their company to the government. And this, Brian's doing it. Jesus, you have a company that you're winning federal contracts too, right, Jesus?
Correct.
And we want to leverage our what we have. I'm going to tell you what we have and tell you how it ties into you being a SME. We can target the federal decision makers on the program side. You can find buyers all over the place, right? But it's very hard to find program managers. It's very difficult to pull them in and have a dedicated session to get their time as a dedicated session. But you also want to get the procurement people and your directors and senior people within the government. We want to target those decision makers. You're the SME, and then we engage with them directly. We pull them through the process of saying, what's your need? What's your biggest issue? Why are you here talking about robotic process automation? You're here because for some reason, you need robotic process automation. The reason I'm calling that out is I'm going to show you a briefing that worked exactly how we're talking about, to engage, to identify the need, qualify the prospects, and get ahead of the RFP. Because guess what? Contracting officers want competition, but just not what, Brian?
Not too much of it.
Not too much of it. So this is a case study. This took 18 months. So for everybody that's in the government or wants to do business with the government, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So that's the first thing. But this was created with the kernel and the seed being planted. We did it on robotic process automation. That's Como in front of your old place right there, Brian.
That's right.
And it drove 121 program attendees from 54 different agencies with 34 leads. One of them was CMS, and that turned into a contract. That is how you market. That's how you engage. That's how you build relationships. By solving a problem, you're now developing a way to do business directly with the government, and sometimes you can bypass the RFP. Other times you're getting your fingerprints all over the RFP, because guess what? That's what it's going to take to win.
Or,
Hey, Dave,
or if you can write the requirement.
Or, oh my gosh, that's not fair. Geez, hey Zeus, you're talking about an unfair advantage.
Well, it's an art.
It's an art.
If you can actually take a look at what they need, don't tell me what you want, tell me what you need. But if you can turn that around and turn it into a requirement, you are golden.
Yeah, I'll say, Dave, in my case, like I'm not in sam.gov. They get through me through a charge card, like less than $10,000. I haven't even tried to market to the federal government. I'm so busy with industry. I just, and with what I'm doing and creating stuff, I just don't have time to even try to sell to the federal government. So I'm doing training at my agency, and we've done some training. We've done that on GovBrief, but I just don't have time to do it. So I'm just really doing everything on the industry side as this me.
But you can choose what you want to do.
Yeah, I'm doing what I want to do.
You want to do what you want to do.
I got some training. I got to create some different training on expiring contracts, and then we have a software subscription product we're working on together. So,
yeah, and that's a winner. We're holding that one back just a little bit longer, and we're going to release that. So the other folks that are consultants, GovBrief can help your clients reach federal market to market to federal government contacts. And we also provide things on demand. Now, upper left-hand corner, best practices for rigging, safety, and accident avoidance. We had somebody ask about a niche product. It doesn't get more niche than this. That's a freaking, it's a freaking shackle. He developed a shackle. Yesterday we did this. We had 7 people ask for samples, and they're project managers and people responsible for safety. Come on now. I'm telling you, this stuff works. Do yourself a favor, fill out the pre-qualification form. I'm going to pop that in one more time. We'll get you guys out of here. Last minute questions and comments. I will let you know. This is being recorded, so we'll distribute it to everybody that's here. The other thing that I'll say is the presentation is there. There's some extra slides in that. Any questions before we get out of here? Let's take a look at what we have in the Q&A. LinkedIn, we got that taken care of. Dr. Marrero, I'm interested in help with starting my book. Kimberly wants to start a book. There you go, Rafa.
Let's meet right away.
Trisha says it's an eye-opening session. I'm happy to be here. Glad you're here. Just curious, how did you get my information to invite me to this session? The way I find these things, Trisha, is we have a database that is not matched by anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right.
Hey, Dave.
Trisha,
Hey, Dave, can I give a little comment on writing a book?
yeah, go ahead.
Schedule an hour every day and just keep scheduling an hour every day in your schedule, morning or the evening. Morning probably works better for most people. And then the other thing, use the dictation feature on Microsoft Word. If you're not a good typer, you don't have to type. Just use the dictation. And before you know it, if you do it every day, after a month and a half, you'll probably have a good 150 pages. But just every day, you got to be dedicated.
And then you can set up an appointment with experts that can help you craft that book.
Exactly, because it's got to get assembled. That's for sure. And Patricia's saying I was working on my DUNS or UEI now via SBA to register my business as a woman-owned small business in order to access the contracts listed for suicide prevention. Is this the best or only route for gov contracting? No. Let's talk about that. Best thing you can do, Patricia, is start pushing your stuff out to the folks so that they know what you do.
Exactly. Capability. Your capabilities.
Sharon, very, very small niche. The impact of military reunions on positive veteran health. Sounds like you need to get together with Patricia. I've been in the space for 11 years. Need help with a SME. That's what we're here for. Sharon, we'll do that.
Well, Dave, the one thing though, on your product that you have on Sam Radar, I mean, really, what you need to do is, get down to the people, and that's Dave's other product. You need to get down to the people that are doing the buying and how they buy. So for that suicide product, Dave might be able to help you on there, but you need to look at who's bought products related to suicide. A lot of behavioral health out there. I worked at Medicare headquarters. But you need to find out which contracts are expiring and who the buyers are. And that's what Sam Radar does, is help you find who the buyers are.
So quick preview for anybody who wants to see it. This is Sam Radar, and here's a contract for $22,000 awarded just the other day with how many offers received, ladies and gentlemen?
One,
baby. That is the vast majority that's happening. We're not going to talk about it anymore. That today you can come check that out at samradar.com. Highly recommend that. But today, what we'd like to do is just thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. You can check out the rest of the materials. Here's information on my main man, the doctor, the colonel. We call him the colonel because he's a colonel with the state of Kentucky. He got that. And I don't have any of those accolades. I just barely got out of high school, like Brian was talking about. If you saw how my English record, my English grades, you would say there's no way you're writing a book, Dave.
Your English is not very good looking.
My English is not very good. And my Spanish is even worse. But we really appreciate you joining us today. If you guys need anything, this is our direct information. We appreciate you guys. We'd love to do business with you, number one. We'd love to help you reach who you want to reach, whether you want to reach in the government, whether you want to reach industry, whether you want to expand your impact like Jesus has done with his book, Making a Difference. He's making a difference. You can make a difference. We can all make a difference, right, Jesus?
Anybody can.
And just use us as the resource that we are. We'll tell you what our lanes are when you get together with us, and we'll help get you where you want to go. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. Thank you, Jesus. Great to meet you. Congratulations on all your success. And if you liked what we talked about, give us a thumbs up. If you don't like what we're talking about, you shouldn't have been here this long. So there you go. And we'll make sure everybody that asks for something, we'll get it. And we close that last poll. Thank you very much for everybody that decided to sign up for the SME program. And for Raphael, you're in good hands. Either side, you'll get to know our team. Rafa, you got any last minute parting comments?
Yeah, we'd like to just remind everyone on this great webinar that we offer a free, and again, my favorite four-letter word, right? Free.
That's my favorite four-letter word. You can't have mine.
Right. A free expert SME consultation, right? So take us up on it. Our contact information is on the chat. And we'd love to go ahead and see how we can help position you and help elevate your brand to help you get to the next level. It's what we do.
And Monaco, real quick, but you have your hand up. I want to make sure. I just saw it. My apologies for being tardy. But you got
That was a
wrong.
mistake. Sorry about that.
Oh, well, you're just waving by?
Yeah.
Sounds
Nice
good.
work. Nice work. Thank you.
Can I do a shameless plug for just 1 minute?
Go ahead, man.
I'm gonna do a shameless plug. You want to see how shameless a plug I can make on this particular program? I'm gonna show you right now. I'm gonna pull this over here. I'm gonna go to GovBrief, right? GovBrief.us, right? That's right there. And check out this. You can learn about the P cards that Brian was just talking about, how he sells back into the government by signing up and listening to me for another 90 minutes. And that starts in less than a half an hour. So I got to get my booty out of here so I can plan for that. So there we go, guys. We really appreciate you doing. What you got, Rafa?
Thank you, Gringo. Great session. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Commander Romero, for being with us today. Really appreciate you guys.
Saluting you guys. All right, great stuff.